What I'm about to reveal are not just mind games, they are shadow techniques that, once used, carve a permanent scar into your psyche. These 7 tactics will give you control over others, yes, but here's what most people don't understand. The moment you deploy these methods, you don't just change how others see you, you fundamentally alter how you see yourself. You become an architect of illusions in a reality that grows darker with every lie. Jung discovered something terrifying in his decades of clinical work. Those who master manipulation don't just lose relationships. They lose the capacity for authentic connection entirely. Their psyche fragments. He documented case after case of individuals who believed they were simply being strategic, protecting themselves, or getting what they deserved. But year after year, session after session, he watched as these same people began to unravel. They'd come to him complaining of emptiness, paranoia, and inability to feel joy. And when Jung traced the pattern back, he found the same root. They had spent so long manipulating others that they'd lost the ability to trust their own authentic self. The unconscious, Jung taught us, keeps perfect records. Every time you manipulate, you're making a withdrawal from your psychic account. And eventually the debt comes due. Before we dive in, it is crucial that you watch this entire video from start to finish. Do not skip around or jump to different parts because each tactic builds on the previous one. These aren't random manipulation tricks. They're a progression, a descent into deeper layers of shadow work. Each one operates on a more fundamental level of the psyche than the last. If you want to save time, watch at 1.5 or 2 times speed instead of skipping sections. Missing even one part could mean missing the exact tactic you need to recognize in your own situation right now, or worse, the one you've already begun using without realizing it. Now that we've set the stage, let me tell you something that might sound almost too perfect to be true, but I promise you it's happening all around us every single day. People are destroying their capacity for love in the name of protecting themselves. They're becoming hollow victories in their own lives, and most of them have no idea it's happening until it's too late. Tactic 1. Emotional baiting through selective vulnerability. This is when you reveal a wound, not to heal, but to hook. You share just enough pain to make someone feel chosen, special, needed. But it's calculated. You're not seeking connection, you're creating obligation. You've learned that vulnerability opens doors, so you've turned it into a key you can duplicate and use at will. The setup is elegant in its cruelty. You wait for the right moment when someone's guard is down or when they're already feeling empathetic, and you offer them a glimpse into your suffering. A childhood story, a past betrayal, a fear you've never told anyone before, except you have told people before. Many people. Because it works. Jung called this the manipulation of the anima or animus. You're not offering your true self. You're offering a lure shaped like intimacy. The person falls for the role you need them to play, not the human you actually are. They believe they're seeing behind your walls, but those walls were never real. They were stage props. And here's the trap. The more you do this, the more you lose access to real vulnerability. You forget how to be seen. You only know how to be strategic. What happens in your psyche is devastating. You begin to experience a split. There's the performative, wounded self you show others, and then there's the real pain you can't access anymore because you've commodified it. Your genuine suffering gets buried deeper and deeper because you've trained yourself that pain is only valuable when it can be used as leverage. Over time, you'll find yourself surrounded by people who love a version of you that doesn't exist, and you'll be completely suffocatingly alone. The real you, the one with authentic needs, genuine fears, true vulnerability, will starve in silence while your false self collects admirers. And one day you'll break down, truly break down, and no one will believe you, because you've cried wolf with your heart too many times. Tactic 2, the timed withdrawal. You give affection, attention, presence, and then you vanish. Not because you're hurt or need space, but because you've studied the pattern. Absence increases value. So you engineer it. You disappear just long enough for them to panic, to question, to chase. You watch the messages pile up. You feel the power of being missed. And then you return casual, like nothing happened, watching them flood you with relief and affection. This tactic operates on intermittent reinforcement, one of the most psychologically addictive patterns known to behavioral science. It's the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive that keeps people pulling slot machine levers for hours. You're not giving consistent love, you're creating an unpredictable reward system that keeps them hooked, always wondering when the next dose of your attention will come. But here's what you don't realize. Every time you withhold love as strategy, you teach yourself that connection is a transaction. You begin to see relationships as battlefields, not sanctuaries. Your nervous system recalibrates. Intimacy becomes a threat. Consistency becomes boring. You need the drama of withdrawal and return because you've conditioned yourself to only feel powerful in separation. Jung would recognize this as the shadow consuming the capacity for eros, the life force of connection. You're not just manipulating others, you're training your own psyche to reject the very thing humans need most: secure, steady, present love. Eventually, even when you want to stay, you'll pull away out of habit. You'll sabotage good relationships because they don't give you the hit of power that manipulation does. The manipulator becomes unable to receive love because they've trained themselves to see it as weakness, as vulnerability, as a loss of control. You'll find yourself alone, not because others left, but because you never learned how to stay. Tactic 3. Gaslighting through micro-contradictions. This one is insidious. You don't outright deny reality, you just shift small details. You say one thing on Monday, another on Wednesday, and when confronted, you make them feel crazy for keeping track. I never said that. You're remembering it wrong. Why are you so paranoid? Are you seriously keeping notes on our conversations? That's obsessive. The brilliance of micro-contradictions is that they're deniable. Any single instance looks like a misunderstanding, a miscommunication, a difference in perception. But you're doing it systematically. You're creating a fog where your partner can't trust their own memory, their own experience, their own reality. You might change plans and claim you never made them. Deny a promise you clearly made. Rewrite the emotional tone of a past conversation. The goal isn't to win an argument, it's to make the other person doubt their ability to perceive truth at all. Once they can't trust their own mind, they have to rely on yours. And that's where you want them, dependent on your version of reality. Jung warned that when you split reality for others, you split it within yourself. Your psyche begins to fracture. You're maintaining multiple narratives, multiple versions of events, and your unconscious mind knows the truth even when your conscious mind denies it. This creates what Jung called a complex, a split-off part of the psyche that operates autonomously, creating anxiety, paranoia, and psychic fragmentation. You lose the ability to hold a coherent narrative of your own life. You become a stranger to yourself because you've practiced being a ghost to everyone else. Your memory becomes unreliable even to you. You start to wonder, did I actually say that? Did that really happen? The gaslighter gets gaslit by their own shadow. The cost? You'll eventually distrust your own memory, your own feelings, your own truth. You'll have successfully gaslit yourself. And when you reach for authenticity, when you desperately need to know what's real, you'll find nothing but smoke and mirrors, because that's all you've built. Tactic 4. Weaponizing their healing. You learn what someone is working through: childhood trauma, abandonment wounds, insecurity, and you use it, not to support them, but to control them. You trigger the wound subtly, just enough to destabilize them. So they lean on you for reassurance. Then you become the drug and the dealer. You create the pain and offer relief in one seamless motion. Maybe they told you their father was emotionally distant, so you pull away just enough to activate that wound, then come back with warmth and watch them cling to you with gratitude. Maybe they shared their fear of abandonment, so you hint at leaving, let them panic, then reassure them and accept their desperate attempts to please you. You found the exact frequency that makes them vibrate with need, and you play it like an instrument. This is perhaps the darkest manipulation because it masquerades as intimacy. They shared their deepest pain with you, believing you'd protect it. Instead, You've turned it into a control panel. Every button is labeled with their trauma, and you know exactly which ones to push. Jung spoke of the shadow's greatest cruelty. When we exploit the suffering of others, we etch that suffering into our own unconscious. What you weaponize in another, you internalize in yourself. You become the wound you manipulated. Your psyche absorbs the trauma you've exploited, and it begins to shape you from within. The unconscious doesn't distinguish between pain you've caused and pain you've experienced. It only knows, this is what relationships look like. This is what love means. Triggering and soothing, wounding and healing. You've created a template, and your shadow will force you to live it out. And one day, you'll find yourself in a relationship where someone does this to you, and you won't be able to leave because you'll finally understand what you did to others. You'll recognize the pattern. You'll feel the hook, and some part of you will accept it as karmic payment, as the universe's way of teaching you empathy through suffering. The manipulator becomes the manipulated, and the cycle completes itself. Tactic 5, the silent debt collector. You do things for people, but never out of love. Every favor, every act of kindness is recorded, not consciously maybe, but it's there, itemized in your psychic ledger. And when the time comes, you call it in. After everything I've done for you, I was there when no one else was. You owe me. The setup is patient. You help them move. You listen to their problems. You show up when they're struggling. And each time, you're making a deposit in an account they don't know exists. They think you're being generous. You know you're being strategic. This is the perversion of reciprocity. Jung understood that genuine care flows freely. It asks for nothing because it came from wholeness, not lack. But when you give to control, you turn love into currency. Every gesture becomes transactional. Every moment of generosity is actually an investment in future leverage. And the price you pay is this. You will never know if anyone loves you or if they're just paying off a debt. Every act of kindness toward you will feel suspect. Every expression of care will seem calculated. Because deep down, you'll know you never gave freely. So why would anyone give freely to you? You'll spend your life wondering if you're valued or just tolerated. If people stay because they want to or because they feel obligated, your relationships will feel like business arrangements, cold and contractual, because that's exactly what you've made them. The joy of spontaneous love, of giving without keeping score, becomes impossible. You've trained yourself out of it. Tactic 6, strategic triangulation. You bring a third person into the dynamic, real or imagined, to create jealousy, competition, insecurity. Someone at work said, "My ex used to." They think you're. It keeps the other person off balance, always trying to prove themselves, always afraid of being replaced. You're creating a constant state of comparison where they never quite measure up, never quite feel secure, always feel like they're auditioning for a role that might be recast at any moment. The third person doesn't even have to be real. Sometimes it's a carefully deployed they, an anonymous audience whose opinion suddenly matters. Sometimes it's an ex you mention just a little too fondly. Sometimes it's a friend or co-worker you praise just enough to spark doubt. The goal is to activate their insecurity, to make them feel like they're competing in a race they didn't know they'd entered. But here's what happens in your psyche. You train yourself to see people as interchangeable. No one becomes sacred. Everyone is a pawn on a chessboard you're playing alone. Relationships lose their depth because you're constantly positioning people against each other, comparing, ranking, keeping your options open. And the unconscious mind does not forget this. You will become disposable to yourself. Just as you've treated others as replaceable, your shadow will whisper that you too can be swapped out, upgraded, discarded. You'll develop a paranoia that mirrors the insecurity you've created in others. You'll believe that no one would choose you if they had better options, because that's exactly how you operate. One day, you'll look in the mirror and realize you've been treating your own soul the way you treated others, as something that can be swapped out, upgraded, replaced. You'll have lost the ability to honor anything, including yourself. And when someone genuinely chooses you, you won't believe them. You'll wait for them to triangulate you because it's all you know. Tactic 7. Future faking. You paint a beautiful tomorrow, not because you intend to build it, but because it buys you today, when we move in together. Once I get this promotion, next year will. You're not lying exactly. You're just never planning to arrive. The future you promise is always one step away, always conditional, always dependent on circumstances that somehow never quite align. You've learned that hope is powerful. It keeps people invested. So you become a merchant of maybe, selling dreams you have no intention of delivering. You describe the life you'll build together, the trips you'll take, the home you'll create, the future where everything falls into place. And they believe you because they want to, because hope is seductive, because the vision you paint is exactly what they've been longing for. Jung warned of this. When you live in the fantasy of a future you don't intend to create, you exile yourself from the present. You become a ghost. You stop showing up to your own life because you're too busy performing a future that exists only in words. The present becomes something to endure rather than experience, and you lose your grounding in reality. The manipulation you use to control others becomes a prison. You're trapped in a story you're telling but never living. Your psyche splits between the narrator of beautiful tomorrows and the person living in a hollowed-out today. And eventually, the future stops feeling real at all. You lose hope, not because life disappointed you, but because you taught yourself that promises are just tools. Nothing is sacred. Nothing is true. And when someone offers you a real future, tangible and present, and asks you to build it now, you won't know how. You've spent so long living in fantasy that reality feels flat, disappointing, insufficient. You'll sabotage it because it doesn't match the impossible dreams you've been selling. The future faker becomes unable to live in any timeline at all. If you've recognized any of these, whether you've used them or had them used on you, leave a comment. You're not alone in this pattern. And if this resonated, subscribe. The path to integration starts with seeing the shadow clearly. This is how we wake up from the trance of manipulation and remember what real connection feels like. Jung once wrote, "The shadow is not a problem to be solved, but a truth to be integrated." These 7 tactics are not evil because they work. They're dangerous because they do. They give you power over others, yes, but every time you use them, you carve another wall between yourself and the possibility of real love. You become a master of illusion in a life that feels increasingly empty. Manipulation is not strength. It is the shadow's desperate attempt to control a world it cannot trust. And the only person you truly manipulate in the end is yourself. The unconscious keeps perfect records. What you do to others, you do to your future. Choose carefully, stay tight, and see you on the next video tomorrow.